You know that feeling? You are sitting on the couch, finishing your coffee, and you look at the sink. You think to yourself, I'm going to wash those dishes. I'm ready. I'm going to get up in 30 seconds and handle it. You are genuinely at peace with this decision. But then, a roommate, a parent, or a partner walks into the room and says, Hey, can you wash the dishes? And suddenly, a physical wall slams down in your chest. You would rather die than touch that sponge? The motivation didn't just vanish, it was murdered. You aren't lazy. You were literally about to do it. But the moment it became a command, it stopped being a task and started feeling like a threat. It sounds petty when you say it out loud, doesn't it? But this is one of the most common visceral glitches in human behavior. It's that instant, prickly heat that rises up the back of your neck when someone, anyone, tries to assert authority over your time or your choices. Maybe you're the employee who performs brilliantly until a micromanager gets involved, at which point you stop working entirely just to prove a point. Or maybe you're the person who refuses to watch a popular movie just because everyone keeps telling you that you have to see it. If this resistance feels built into your DNA, you aren't just being difficult. There is a fascinating and slightly chaotic psychology behind the people who hate being told what to do. Let's start by looking at the profile of the freedom fighter. This isn't necessarily a political stance. It's a biological reflex known as psychological reactance. For this type of person, autonomy is not just a preference, it is oxygen. When the brain perceives a threat to its freedom, like a direct order or even a strong suggestion, it triggers a motivational state to restore that freedom. It's not logical, it's primal. It's why when you see a wet paint do not touch sign, your finger twitches. For the freedom fighter, an unsolicited piece of advice feels like a reduction of their world. If they follow your instruction, they have lost a degree of freedom. So to regain that lost ground, they do the opposite. It's a way of saying, I exist, and I am the captain of this ship. The tragedy here is self-sabotage. These people will often skip doing things that would actually benefit them, like studying, eating well, or sleeping early, solely because society, or experts, told them they should. They choose suffering over submission, just to prove that the choice was theirs. But then there is a quieter, more analytical version of this trait found in the logic seeker. This person doesn't hate authority on principle, they hate incompetent authority. If you tell them to jump, they won't ask, how high? They will ask, why are we jumping? What is the data supporting this jump? And have you considered stepping instead? This often happens in the workplace. To a traditional boss, the logic seeker looks insubordinate, arrogant, or difficult to manage. However, inside the logic seeker's mind, blind obedience is a form of stupidity. They view hierarchy as a social construct that doesn't replace the need for competence. If an instruction doesn't make logical sense, their brain rejects it like a bad organ transplant. They need the context before they can commit to the content. They aren't trying to slow things down. They are trying to ensure that the action is actually worth taking. But because they refuse to move until they understand the map, they often clash with people who just want to get things done. Then we have to talk about a more complex internal struggle: the demand avoider. This goes deeper than just stubbornness. For some people, any demand, even the ones they place on themselves, triggers the nervous system's fight-or-flight response. This is sometimes associated with a profile known as pathological demand avoidance, or PDA. Imagine writing a to-do list of things you actually enjoy, like paint a picture or play a video game. The moment you write it down, it becomes an obligation. And because it is an obligation, your brain categorizes it as a threat. The demand avoider experiences a sudden, crushing paralysis when faced with an expectation. It's not that they won't do it. It's that they physically feel like they can't. The pressure creates a wall of anxiety that makes simple tasks feel like climbing Everest. To the outside observer, they look lazy or procrastinating. But internally, they are fighting a high-stakes battle against their own adrenaline just to answer an email or take a shower. It is a state of constant negotiation with one's own energy, where the only way to get things done is to trick the brain into thinking it wasn't a demand in the first place. Finally, there is the counterdependent. This is the person whose independence is actually a scar from the past. On the surface, they look strong, capable, and totally self-sufficient. They are the ones who say, I'll do it myself, and genuinely mean it. But this refusal to take direction often comes from a deep-seated lack of trust. Somewhere along the line, they learned that relying on others was dangerous, or that following someone else's lead resulted in pain. When you tell a counterdependent what to do, they don't hear guidance, they hear condescension. They hear you saying, "I don't think you are capable of handling this." They interpret help as interference and direction as control. They have built a fortress of, "I don't need you," and every time you give them an order, it's like you're tapping on the glass of that fortress. It just reminds them to lock the door tighter. They protect their agency fiercely because, to them, it's the only thing keeping them safe. It is strange how much of our identity is wrapped up in who we let influence us. For some, following orders is easy. It's a relief not to have to choose. But for the people we've talked about today, the command-resistant, every instruction is a tiny battle for the soul. Whether it's the freedom fighter protecting their autonomy, the logic seeker demanding sense, the demand avoider managing anxiety, or the counterdependent guarding their heart, the mechanism is the same: the need to feel like the author of one's own life. So, how does this land for you? Did you recognize yourself in the person who stares at the sink, refusing to wash the dishes just because you were asked? Or maybe you realized why your partner or your child shuts down the moment you try to help them with instructions. It's worth asking yourself, is your resistance protecting your freedom, or is it just keeping you from getting what you actually want? If you enjoyed this deep dive into the firmware of the human mind, there's plenty more where that came from. I'd tell you to subscribe, but, well, I have a feeling you'll only do it if you want to.